A man is running for his life, a deadly predator hot on his heels. But no matter how fast he runs, how hard his feet pound the pavement and leg muscles strain, he will never outrun his pursuer. After all, you can't run from what you can't see. His lungs scream for air, and he stops to catch his breath. But when he opens his mouth, the air is sucked out of it. Lungs crumpling like wet tissue paper as he wheezes. His blood boils, his eyes roll back. He doesn't even have time to scream as he experiences the kind of horrific death that afflicts astronauts lost in the vacuum of space while he stands in the middle of an ordinary street. No one notices him until he drops to the ground, and they certainly don't notice the shift in the air as a breeze flees the scene. But what was there floating on the air that did such a thing? To understand that, we need to go back to earlier that day, before this man had the air ripped from his lungs. Moisture hangs heavy in the warm air. The clouds are thick and uneasy in the dark, greenish sky. Here in Tornado Alley, residents know what this kind of weather means, and they know it's not good news. Anyone with any sense is staying indoors today, windows bolted shut. No one would dare go out now, with the tornado threatening to touch down at any moment. Unless, of course, they're a storm chaser. The man sitting in his truck watching the sky with bright, excited eyes has never used that phrase to describe himself, but it certainly does apply. He chases storms, twisters in particular, along with the rest of his team. Technically, it's for meteorological research, but anyone who knows him knows that he gets a thrill out of chasing down powerful storms, looking danger in the face, and coming back out of it in one piece. He started chasing storms young, slipping out the front door to sneak a peek while the rest of his family ran for the cellar, listening to the sound of the tornado sirens. He would only join the rest of them when he saw that towering funnel of air, spinning and spinning at hundreds of miles per hour. Somewhere along the way, he even got himself a couple of degrees in meteorology, all to understand those big behemoths of the sky just a bit better. Now he knows they aren't the fingers of an angry god reaching down to touch the earth, but the natural consequence of the right cocktail of moisture and air, of hot and cool, twisting together until you get, well, a twister. Now he does things with a bit more finesse. He drives a properly equipped truck, he tracks the storms with radar and top-of-the-line equipment, and he has a team to help. Not a big team, mind you. Too many cooks in the kitchen is how people get burned. At least, that's what his mama always used to say. But he's got his best friend and longtime chase partner in the passenger seat, running the computer and keeping an eye on the radar. Then, in the backseat, there's the interns, a pair of nice college kids that haul the equipment and keep the operation running. With those two fine fellows dotting the I's and crossing the T's, the leader is free to focus on his passion, the storms. And it looks like there's a big one brewing. They won't get right up in it, not just yet. He has to wait for it to touch down, wait for those churning clouds up there to fulfill their promise. He can tell it won't be long, though. He can see the funnel starting to form, stretching out and down until... Yes! The leader can't help it. He lets out a whoop of excitement. That's a tornado right there, folks. And that means it's go time. His chase partner has already generated a prediction for the tornado's path, so all they need to do is drive around to meet it on the way. He revs the engine, reminds the others to buckle their seatbelts, and speeds across the wide-open field. He veers down a dirt road, pedal pressed to the floor, and skids the truck toward the tornado. As they get closer, the team can hear that classic sound, like the roar of a freight train. It's not the biggest they've seen, not the most dangerous by a long shot, but it's still a mighty impressive storm up close. They can feel the truck start to rattle, winds whipping against the windows. The leader shouts over the raging storm, giving the team the heads up. He's about to drive them into the center of the tornado. Everybody holds on tight, ready to ride the storm the way they have so many times before. But as the engine revs and the truck's wheels spin, the team witnesses a sight they've never seen before. Right there in front of them, all of a sudden, the tornado dissipates. All storms subside eventually, of course, but never like this. Never such a sudden dissolution at the height of its strength and activity. But it doesn't matter whether or not it makes sense. It happened. The leader sits in the driver's seat for a moment in silence. All that excitement, all that planning and work has dissipated in an instant, along with the tornado. Soon, the leader's partner breaks the silence with the question on everyone's mind. Now what? One of the interns pipes up from the back, offering to stay here and investigate the area while the others go back to the original site of the tornado's touchdown. She climbs out of the truck and promises to give the team a call when she's finished inspecting the area. With that, the other 3 members of the team speed off, back to their starting point. The leader isn't sure what exactly he's looking for, but he needs to do something. Otherwise, the day feels wasted. But no matter how many times he drives the truck back and forth over the area, following the path of the tornado, there are no clues to be found. It just disappeared. Maybe they miscalculated something. Maybe it's just one of those strange quirks of nature. But it seems like it might just be time to cut their losses, pack up, and head back to town for a meal and a strategy session. There's always next time. The intern grabs his phone and calls the other intern to get her location so that they can swing back around and pick her up. But she doesn't answer. He calls again. Still no answer. A bit unusual, but it's fine. That's what location tracking is for. They track the signal from her phone and drive back over. But when the leader inspects the horizon, ready to call out to the intern and usher her back into the truck, he can't find her anywhere. The 3 men climb out of the truck, growing increasingly more concerned with every passing moment. Then, they spot it, lying on the ground a few hundred feet ahead. A crumpled heap, what could almost be mistaken for a pile of clothes at first glance. But as they approach, they can see the horrible truth. It's her, the intern, lying on the ground. Her eyes are wide, bulging, and glassy. Her mouth is stretched open in a silent scream. Not a speck of blood on her, no visible wound to indicate what might have killed her. No broken bones or limbs bent out of place. It's as if she suddenly stopped being able to breathe and dropped dead of suffocation where she stood. At first, no one says a word. None of them want to be the first to break the silence and acknowledge what they all see right in front of them. She's dead. Something killed her, and none of them were there to help. The other intern speaks up. He volunteers to call the police, though none of them know exactly what to report. While the intern makes the call, the partner, the right-hand man, grabs the leader's arm. Something's up with the radar, he explains. It's picking up unusual activity, strange currents in the air just above where they're standing now. Not a tornado, something else. Something he's never seen before. He understands that the circumstances are extreme, but it could be connected to the girl's death. Maybe the 2 of them should follow the pattern and check things out. The intern volunteers to stay with his fallen partner and wait for the authorities, if the 2 older men want to go investigate the wind patterns in the meantime. The leader considers for a moment, then decides that if they can't chase a storm, they might as well chase some kind of answer. So the leader and his right-hand man hop back into the truck and follow the mystery air currents down the road. As they drive, the leader asks his partner for continuous updates on the unusual weather they're tracking. It doesn't behave like any storm they've seen, like any of the air currents they tend to measure while watching tornadoes form. This particular current seems to bend and weave at random, defying the patterns around as it goes. It doesn't move like the weather, the partner notes. It's more like a swarm of insects, a flight of birds engaging in what ornithologists call murmuration. It's something starlings do, he explains. They fly as flocks in these mesmerizing, unpredictable patterns, but of course, as they look up at the sky, there are no starlings. There are no insects swarming like some biblical plague. Hell, there aren't even clouds anymore, just a wide-open blue sky. All of a sudden, the leader feels his partner's grip on his arm again. The air current is doubling back, headed the same way it came. Almost as if, and he knows how silly this sounds, it was headed back to the spot where they found the girl's body. The spot where the living intern is waiting for the police. Both men know how silly it seems to be worried that a rogue air current is going to attack someone, but the leader can't shake the sense of dread that floods his body. He jerks the wheel, spinning the truck around and speeding back to the spot where the intern is waiting. On the way, his partner gets a phone call from the kid. He answers, but he can't hear anything on the other side except some kind of interference, like someone blowing into the phone's speakers. Then, the call fails. Something is definitely wrong. When the leader sees the bodies slumped on top of each other, 2 now where there was 1, he slams on the brake so hard that the seatbelt nearly snaps his ribs. But it doesn't. It just knocks the wind out of him for a second as he fumbles with the buckle, then the door. He stumbles out of the truck, and the wind is knocked out of him all over again as he takes in the up-close sight of the 2 interns, stacked one on top of the other, both wide-eyed, open-mouthed, and dead. The young man has his phone still in his hand, thumb frozen over the previous number he dialed. He called for help, but they didn't make it in time. Not much point in calling the police again. They're already on their way to pick up one body. Now they'll just have two. The leader's knees buckle beneath him, and he sits on the grass, face in his hands. What happened here? It all went so wrong so fast. Sure, all of them knew storm chasing was dangerous when they got into it, but no storm he's ever seen is capable of killing someone like this. Just sucking the life out of them without leaving so much as a scratch. The leader wipes a tear from his eye when he suddenly feels a whoosh of air whip across his face, as if something flew past him at a breakneck speed. He calls out to his partner, asking if the other man felt it too, but he doesn't get an answer. That's odd. The sinking feeling in his gut is back, and he looks up, searching for the other man. There he is, standing just behind the truck. But something's wrong. The other man has his back to the leader, but he's thrashing around and waving his arms like a drowning victim. Slowly, carefully, the leader makes his way around the side of the truck to get a better look at his partner. It's a sight he'll never forget as long as he lives. The other man's eyes are bulging out of his face, blood vessels bursting. His mouth is wide open, gasping for a breath he can't seem to catch. He struggles against some invisible force, like he's drowning on dry land. No, like all of the oxygen has been sucked out of the air just around him, like he's trapped in a vacuum-sealed bubble. His partner locks eyes with him, and in spite of the struggling, in spite of his tenuous grasp on life, the leader can see him mouth one word in perfect clarity. Run. The leader doesn't fancy himself a coward, has never thought of himself as the kind of man who runs from a threat, but he's also not the kind of man to ignore a friend's dying words. He turns and flees, hearing the dull thud of his best friend's body hitting the ground behind him. Then he hears the whoosh of air, or of something moving through the air. Whatever it is, whatever killed the others, it's coming after him next. He isn't sure exactly what it is, or if he can even outrun it, but he's sure as hell going to try. After a lifetime of chasing danger, he won't let the danger catch him. No, sir. But where can he seek shelter out here in the middle of nowhere? Not much out here but abandoned buildings, farmland, maybe an overpass. But an overpass is nowhere to hide in a tornado, and it certainly won't protect him from whatever's after him. Then he spots it up ahead. A metal grain silo, recently reinforced from the looks of it. Normally, he'd never dream of climbing into one of those. His mother warned him growing up about how easy it was to slip beneath the surface and suffocate. But if he's lucky, and he's got his fingers crossed he just might be, it'll be empty. Only one way to find out. He climbs the ladder faster than he's ever climbed anything before, and opens the top of the silo. He peers down inside, and his heart leaps. There's some corn in there, but not much. Not deep enough for him to get lost beneath the surface. Hopefully enough to break his fall. He climbs inside, seals the thing up behind him, and drops. He hears his leg break before he feels it, the sick crunch of bone. Then, the pain. But amidst the agony of the freshly broken bone, he takes gulps of stale, musty air and thanks his lucky stars that he can still breathe. The question is, for how long? Something thumps against the side of the grain silo, like a tree branch falling. Then comes a rattling, like strong winds shaking the metal walls. It travels all over the surface of the silo, shaking every inch from bottom all the way up to the top. But as the rattling continues, the predator intent on catching its prey, the man realizes that he has picked just the right place to hide. Whatever's after him, it can't get in. Now he just has to wait for it to get tired. Hopefully, it'll be before he dies of thirst in here. An hour passes, then another, then another. Then, quiet. He can't explain how, but he knows that whatever it was is gone now. He calls for help and tells the officer on the phone where to find the fallen bodies of his friends. He gives up his life of storm chasing, afraid of what he might encounter while he's in pursuit of another tornado. He's never been scared of them, but what else is out there? As his mama said, the devil you know beats the devil you don't. He'll never know, but this particular devil was SCP-885. SCP-885 is a living creature of unknown origin and composition. Wherever it goes, it displaces all fluids within its perimeter, both liquid and gas. The Foundation has attempted to analyze the creature's interior, but there appears to be no known matter within. It is, as far as anyone can tell, essentially a complete vacuum. Sonar imaging has allowed the Foundation to determine the perimeter of SCP-885, which is a cloud of about 200 ovoid elements intersecting and dividing seemingly at random. Whether it is one single creature made up of these ovoids or a swarm of smaller creatures is currently unknown. SCP-885 is able to manipulate its difference in pressure to move itself through space. It is able to move through fluids and pass through porous solids such as concrete. Metal and tempered glass, however, are able to contain it or keep it out. Any item fully immersed within SCP-885 will behave as it would in a vacuum. When this item is a living thing, well, the results are not pretty. Which is unfortunate, because SCP-885 is a predator of sorts, and all living, breathing creatures are its ideal prey. It tracks this prey via atmospheric vibrations, and once it has found a target, the cloud will surround it. The creature can try to run, but once it is in the clutches of SCP-885, it is already far too late. Once the prey is surrounded, SCP-885 will extract all fluids and gases via negative pressure, and the victim will perish from hypoxia and ebullition. In layman's terms, the lack of oxygen and the formation of bubbles in bodily liquids due to decreased environmental pressure, respectively. Should its intended prey manage to escape, SCP-885 will chase after them and hunt them down. It can move at up to 12 meters per second in a standard atmosphere, though it is a bit slower in denser air. Most prey that attempt to escape are unsuccessful. Once the prey is dead, SCP-885 will lose interest. It is uncertain whether it feeds on the prey in any way or if it just kills for entertainment. I suppose its motives don't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Either way, when SCP-885 targets something, that thing winds up dead. SCP-885 is kept within a welded steel container in an undisclosed Foundation storage area. This area must be kept at negative pressure at all times in order to reduce the possibility of a containment breach. Additionally, air movement within the storage area must be monitored at all times. If a containment breach should ever occur, I shudder to think what might happen. SCP-885 is nearly undetectable in an ordinary atmosphere. Even in liquids, it only looks like a cluster of bubbles. Frankly, it's a miracle the Foundation was ever able to contain the thing in the first place. If SCP-885 were ever to get out, it would likely take a while for security personnel to even realize anything had changed. For this reason, any unexplained shifts in the air near SCP-885's enclosure are to be reported immediately. Staff have also been advised to remember that SCP-885 can use its pressure shifts to hold doors closed, trapping a victim in a room with no escape. Because sound cannot travel in a vacuum, the victim would not even be able to call for help. In the clutches of SCP-885, just as in space, no one can hear you scream. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-1352, Sentient Dust Devil.